Hello everybody, Tracy White here, T. Earl on the UE4 forums, back with another video. I know it's been a long time since the last video, but that's because I've been playing video games. H1Z1, if you haven't had a chance to check that out, if you like zombie survival games, is pretty fun, early access, but still buggy and stuff, but it's still a lot of fun. Anyway, things that I've done with my game since the last video. Well, I've upgraded to 4.6. That was a necessity for putting the game on my iOS device. I have an iPad 2. And I did get it on there and running just fine, and we'll get into that later. But I want to show you a couple of things that I've done since that last video. Well, the options menu has changed greatly. You can see now I have a ball mesh in the middle with material and a particle system on it, and I have 4 different themes right now, and I plan on putting a couple more on there, but they're locked right now because they don't actually exist. I can also turn my particles on and off, and you can reset all of my progression if I want to. Okay, so that's kind of a big deal, a lot of stuff going on. And so what I'm going to do real quick is I want to show you the particle systems and the ball materials. So I'll start with ball materials, and there's only 4 of them right now. And instead of, if you remember the last options menu that I actually had different meshes for different pawns. I scrapped that idea. I thought they were ugly, and I didn't like the way it worked. So I wanted to stick with one mesh with different materials and particles on it for the bling factor. All right, so very simple materials. For example, my circuit material for my tech looking ball is a very simple material that I made in Photoshop, applied to the base color, and of course multiplied by an amount for the emissive color to give it that glow look. The ball of fire is a little different, kind of a lava looking thing where I use a glow material in the emissive channel and then a panner glow material. And the panner, all it does is it changes the UVs, and I've got it set to a pretty low amount, 0.1 and 0.12. And what it does is it takes this material and it pans it underneath this one with this color added to it and then multiplied by an amount into our emissive channel. And that gives us that kind of rolling looking fiery crack look or whatever. All right, so ice material, very basic. Again, it's just ice and it's only kind of rough. And my ball, magic ball, which is just again a material that I made in Photoshop, which was some psychedelic color something or other with a panner on it, and this panner does a little up and a little over, so a little on the X and the Y, kind of shiny. And I do have an emissive on it that multiplies the color channels by an emissive amount. And just to show you, I can pump that up a whole lot, like to 50, and it gives me this really big glowy ball, but I don't want it. I want a subtle glow that makes it easy to see in the shadows. Alright, so that's the ball materials. The other thing that I have is particles, and for the particle materials, and I'll show you, I don't know, one material here real quick. Simple black and white opacity masks for my particles. So the magic particle has that little swirly thing and then this little starburst looking thing, and that's, I don't think it gets much simpler than that. One thing of note for your particle color or your particle materials is for your color you need a particle color node. If you right click anywhere and just start typing in particle, you'll see that there's a particle color node, and I fed that directly into my emissive. What that enables the particle system to do is change the color of the particle material. Okay, now real quick we'll go into the particle. So since I showed you magic, you know what, let me show you a couple of other particle materials I use. This is black and white noise gradient noise thing that I made for fire that's also used for the um, ice material. My little circuit trail, very basic circuit board type pattern. Again, these materials are very low resolution. And for my ice material, I also have this little snowflake, a little 128 by 128 map, and that makes trails for the snowflake. Let me show you that real quick. So like if I go to ice, play a level, we'll go to level 1. You can see I've got little snowflakes that trail behind and show you where you've been. I thought that was kind of neat. All right. For the particles themselves, I have a very basic particle emitter here. Called this one P, magic, P for particle, and magic because it's my magic particle that goes with my magic ball. You can see I have two emitters on it. One is the swirly effect, and the other is the trail effect, which is just a particle that doesn't have much movement on it, so it stays, when it's spawned, it stays in place, and that gives you the trails. Alright, whenever you add, let's start from scratch here, and I'll show you. We'll make a new particle called test, particle system called test. Alright, so here's test. Test at the beginning gives us one particle emitter and no material on it. So under required, so you got all these different variables you need to set. So required obviously means something's required for the particle to show up. If I go to my particle materials and select magic, for example, material, I assign it in here, and now I have that magic material going into my particle system. For spawning, you have a rate and a rate scale. I'm going to change my rate to 1 and my scale to 5 for this example. I turn off apply global spawn rate scale. Alright, and then my lifetime, I've changed for mine to 0.5 and 5. And again, these are values that you're going to mess with on your own to try to get the look and the feel that you want for your own custom particle system. Initial size I've left alone. Initial velocity though I have changed where the Z on max is 50 and the minimum is 100. Alright, so color over life. Now here's a big departure from 4.5 to 4.6. In 4.5 I was able to oversaturate to give that glow to my particles. It's broken in 4.6 and it's going to be fixed in 4.7, but for now I'm just going to have to deal with it as it is. Okay, so color over life. I'm going to go ahead and click this little graph thing and it'll show you our alpha and color in our graph here. I'm going to turn off the alpha because I really just want to see the color, and because we're clamped in 4.6 to 1, what I'm going to do is we're going to oversaturate this really a lot, so it'll be very evident what's going on. I'm going to take my green channel and just turn it to 0. I'm going to take my red channel and I'm going to start at 1, and then over life it'll go to 0. Let's change this down to maybe 0.5. And then my blue, I'm going to start my blue channel at 0 and it'll end at 1. So now you can see my particles are going from a red to a blue. Alright, so size by life. My phone is ringing. My daughter will answer that. Okay, size by life. So if you go down to size and go size by life, now you get this new node here. Alright, so I've got 2 elements in here. I'm going to add one more element in here, and I know it freaks out a little bit, but it'll change in just a second. Alright, so when my first element, I'm going to change this to 0.1 for my in value, and my out values are going to be 15, 15, and 15. And then for my last element, I'm going to change that to 0.5. So what that does is it starts the particle at like small, and then immediately makes it big at a very early, at 0.1 in its lifeline, and then it'll get back smaller again to the end for the rest of its life. Alright. The other thing I added was initial rotation, so if we, rate. So if we go to rotation rate, change our put the initial rotation rate in there, you'll see that it starts kind of rotating on its own, which is cool. So it gives it a nice random rotation, and as the life goes on, it tapers off into nothing. So the reason I made it big is because the ball mesh is big and I wanted the particle effect to surround the ball. Alright, so in our example of the particle system actually used, I have the trail as well, which is just right click in a blank space, add a new particle emitter, and then you set up that particle emitter as you need to. So for example, I would use particle trail for this, and then you go through and set up these other options as you would need for it to do the trail. Some of that has to do with excuse me, again, the spawn rate, which I'm going to change to 1, and my rate scale to 10. Lifetime is going to, I'm going to make this one last for a maximum of 2. My initial size, I'm going to change to 150, and at a minimum 50. And then here's the big one, which is initial velocity. I'm going to change this down. On the X, I'm going to leave a little bit of wiggle, but on Y and Z there'll be nothing. So it just kind of stays, and then on my minimum I'm going to put those to 0. So it kind of stays in one place. And the cool thing is, whenever your pawn is moving, and therefore your particle system is moving, wherever that particle spawns, it's going to stay for 2, which was our life between 1 and 2. So that's the simplicity of the particle systems. They're all very similar to each other. Not all of them have trails. In that case, I'd just kind of get rid of this or turn it off. The Techno, the one with the circuit looking thing, doesn't have this particle. It only has the trails in it, for example. So you know, you can make whatever particles you want for your needs. That's the particle systems. So I want to get into the options menu and what it's doing. So here it is broken. Go back over here. And there is a bug that I haven't quite figured out, or something that I'm doing wrong that I haven't quite figured out with the camera change. So you can see that we are in a matinee on the main menu, and whenever we go to options, we switch to a different camera. And when we go back to main menu, we go back into our matinee. So we'll go over that. We'll go over how I'm setting this one single mesh to these different materials, how we can toggle the particles on and off, what happens when we hit apply, and reset all progression, which erases our save game data. but that's kind of involved. I'm not going to go over it right now. I'll go over it in another video right after this one. Thanks for watching, guys. Coming up after this is going to be that options menu. Then I'm going to show you how I got this on my iPad and how it works and where I go from there. Thanks for watching.